is based around Psalm 13, and Amy will share more about how this service developed and details. But before we get to that, I have a couple of reminders. First, the Presbyterian ordination exams are upon us right now. So if you are taking those, we keep you in our prayers, and if you have friends that are taking them, please send prayers their way as well. Next week's Reap and Sow will also be in Lake Chapel, and that will be led by Chris Burton and bring in the music and culture of reggae. So you keep on the lookout for that. Finally, Lucius Chapin and Trish King are starting a substance abuse support group that is similar to Alcoholics Anonymous. More details will be coming about this group, but this group will be for those who experience addiction, those who wish to learn more about how to support those with addiction, particularly in a ministry context, and those who have just been impacted in their daily lives by addiction. Again, more details about this will be forthcoming, and a message specifically from Lucius and Trish. Friends, we live in a world where we wonder how long it will be until we see God's justice. We hear the groanings of our environment and our neighbors, but we still come together because we know that God is steadfast. Knowing this, we enter in together our interculture worship of lament. Amy?
Good morning, siblings. As Mari mentioned, this is a service built around Psalm 13, based on some work I did in last semester, with an intentional eye toward interculturality. Today is a service intended to spend time in the practice of lament. It'll be a time together where we are settled, where we are still, we are keeping in touch with ourselves, situations in the world. So in order to do that, I want you to feel prepared and comfortable where you are. So a little bit of housekeeping to get out of the way at the beginning. First, so you'll notice we have, obviously you notice because it's kind of hard to miss, we are set up in semicircles around different stations, and each station represents a situation that is bearing on some or all of us in our community. Climate crisis, conflict in Gaza, continued struggles of the survivors of domestic and partner violence, mass incarceration. If one of these issues speaks particularly to you today, that you'd like to spend extra time in prayer and lament over it, feel free to move in the next couple minutes, as I'm talking even, to one that speaks more to you. If you're seated at one that feels good, but you want to spend time with another one later, these stations will remain up throughout the week. The chapel is always open. Please feel free to come lament, pray, mourn, connect with God over any of these situations and the symbols here that represent them. The other housekeeping bit is that you'll notice on the displays near you, there are colored pieces of paper. At this time, if one person in each circle would be nice enough to stand up and get that stack of paper, pass it around. And I'd like to invite you to pick one color that is positive for you, that feels good, a happy color. And one color that represents not one of your favorite emotions. Anger, confusion, fear, frustration. I'll tell you more about those later. And everyone pick two colors. Finally, I do want to note that because of the nature of this service, the nature of these situations, there might be some difficult feelings that come up for you today. You are, of course, always welcome to exit this space and contend with those feelings in your own way. However, I do want to encourage you that our time spent in lament together as a community is a time that might help you put voice to feelings that maybe you haven't been able to put a voice to before. This is a safe place. This is a safe community. If you are able, we invite you to stay present and let us carry those with you today. Our beginning song is a song by the group The Many, which some of you are familiar with, and it is a song that reminds us that whatever you have burdening you in your life is welcome here today. For time to put it down, even if just for a moment, to rest, and let us help you carry it. For most of the singing in this service, I'm going to invite you to remain seated just to feel present in the space and feel comfortable with the people near you and the art in front of you. Let us join our voices together in worship and song. Listen now to the word from the psalmist. How long, O Lord, will you forget me forever? How long will you hide your face from me? How long must I bear pain in my soul and have sorrow in my heart all day long? How long shall my enemy be exalted over me? Consider and answer me, O Lord my God. Give light to my eyes, or I will sleep the sleep of death. And my enemy will say, I have prevailed. My foes will rejoice because I am shaken. But I trusted in your steadfast love. My heart shall rejoice in your salvation. I will sing to the Lord because he has dealt bountifully with me. How long? The word long, I'm drawn to that in this psalm because it can describe time. How long? We've been here a long time. But the word long can also mean desire, or yearn, crave. This how long language of the psalmist is also language of longing. How long do we long for God's answers? How long do we long for God to turn around and face us? My mother died almost 15 years ago. Those of us who have experienced loss, you know those feelings. How long this longing for their return, for their wholeness, for peace last? I still dream about her fairly often. Those of you who have lost loved ones, you're probably familiar with some of these common lost loved one dreams where they come back for a little while. But some of my more unpleasant versions of that dream, I'm with her again. I know she can't stay long, and she is not looking at me. Remember when we were shopping together, something innocuous, something mothers and daughters do a lot, shopping. And I could not get her, my mother, to turn around and look at me. And I always wake up before she does. Obviously, this dream can't compare to true neglect that those who have suffered such a thing feel. But it's visceral still. It's the closest I have, I think, to this feeling that the psalmist describes. That longing, just one glimpse. Let me see her face again. Let me hear her voice, that if I called her voicemail like I did for the year after she died. Oh, just one look, please. We have felt that. And guess what? The psalmist has given us words and therefore given us permission to cry out to God, how dare you not look at me? That is the permission we are giving ourselves today. And because it is a permission that not all of us have always been granted, either from personality types, perhaps our cultures that we come from have different understandings of what we're allowed to say to God, of what we're allowed to show to those in our community. Because we have all carried these longings, these laments differently, our bodies have felt them. And so before we travel further on this journey of lamenting together, I want to take some time for us to be aware of the bodies that have carried us through our lives, to be aware and caring of the bodies that have held that lament for us, even if our voices were not able to speak it. So at this time, you don't need to read or write anything. If you want to put your bullet down or your marker or whatever you're fiddling with, or maybe you like fiddling, that's fine too. I do. I just want you to take a moment. You may choose to look at the art in front of you as to have something to focus on. You may be more comfortable closing your eyes. Find a position in your seat that's comfortable. Some need knees bent, cross-legged. Some need feet flat on floor. You know your body. You know what makes you feel comfortable. At home. And as much as you are able and comfortable to, I invite you to think of a time when you have felt that longing, or even that anger towards God, or a situation that you couldn't name the feeling, but it was not good for you. Don't travel too far down that path if it is harmful for you. But as much as you are able to, find that. And notice, if you can, did your body change? Did you clench your teeth? Did you tense your shoulders? Did you make a fist? Did you sit up a little straighter? Did you try to close yourself in? Maybe you have a habit of doing one of these things. You're stuck in traffic and you can't yell at the person who's causing the problem. Or it's about time to go visit a family member who's been problematic for you. What does your body do in those moments? It's okay. Do that now. Clench the fist, tense the shoulders, clench the jaw, sit up straighter, tighten yourself, and do the opposite. Let it go. Unclench that fist. Give that jaw a little room to move. Feel space between each vertebrae. Maybe roll your shoulders just a little bit if you're a shoulder holder like I am. Breathe deeply through your nose. Hold it in your belly. Gently and out through your mouth. Continue to breathe deeply through your nose, filling your belly. Out gently through your mouth. Turn your mind toward that part of your body that holds your tension. Multiple parts. Give it some love mentally. Say, thank you for carrying that for me. Thank you for carrying me through this life. Even the voice that we will use to express our laments today is a physical part of our body. Be aware of how that voice has spoken for you, has been silenced by others. Tell it today, voice, you get to speak for me. You can cry out if you want. A few more deep breaths in. Fill your belly. Let it go. Every part of you is loved, is made in the image of God, is a child of God. Not just the soul and the feelings and the mind, but this physical part of you. It has carried so much for you, and it will continue to. Let it be present today and carry you through this time as well. You are now invited to use that voice, if you wish, to sing another form of lament, one that comes to us from the African American enslaved person's musical tradition called spirituals. A cry out for the Jesus that we love to walk with us. And you are invited again to remain seated to sing together.
the psalm in Arabic, and then I will read it in English again. Psalm 13. إلى متى يا رب تنساني كل النسيان؟ إلى متى تحجب وجهك عني؟ إلى متى أجعل هموما في نفسي وحزنا في قلبي كل يوم؟ إلى متى يرتفع عدوي علي؟ انظر واستجب لي يا رب إلهي. أنر عيني لئلا أنام نوم الموت. لئلا يقول عدوي قد قويت عليه. لئلا يهتف مضايقي بأني تزعزعت. أما أنا فعلى رحمتك توكلت. يبتهج قلبي بخلاصك. أغني للرب لأنه أحسن إلي. How long, O Lord? Will you forget me forever? How long will you hide your face from me? How long will you hide your face from me? How long must I bear pain in my soul and have sorrow in my heart all day long? How long shall my enemy be exalted over me? Consider and answer me, O Lord my God. Give light to my eyes, or I will sleep, the sleep of death. And my enemy will say, I have prevailed. My foes will rejoice because I am shaken. But I trusted in your steadfast love. My heart shall rejoice in your salvation. I will sing to the Lord because he has dealt bountifully with me. But I trust in your steadfast love. My heart shall rejoice in your salvation. I will sing to the Lord because he has dealt bountifully with me. A complaint against God. The psalmist feels betrayed by God. The psalmist is not saying, will you forget me? The psalmist says, God has forgotten about them. The question is, how long will God forget about them? Will God forget about them forever? The psalmist is not wondering if God is hiding God's face. The psalmist declares that God is hiding God's face, and the question that they are seeking an answer for is, how long will God hide God's face from them? Does God forget? Does God hide God's face? The pain and the sorrows that the psalmist is going through make this sound to be true for them. Is the psalmist just angry and venting? And deep down there, they do not really think that God would forget about them and hide God's face? Isn't God faithful? And didn't God promise to save and deliver? Then what does it imply? That the psalmist is not saved or delivered and that their enemy actually prevailed? For the psalmist, this meant and felt like that God has forgotten about them and that God has hidden God's face from them. One might say, this is poetic language. Yes, it is poetic language, and indeed it is. It is a way for the psalmist to speak about their experience. But that does not mean that we take it more lightly because it's just poetry. It's just how the psalmist felt. It's not really important for our theology and thinking about God, one might say. It is not really true theology that we read here about God, one might proclaim. What makes one accept this as a theological statement, and what makes one dismiss it as it's just venting? How does our culture impact theologizing about God in the midst of pain and suffering? How much does our experience of privilege impact what we accept as a valid theology and what is simply poetic muses by the psalmists? How does our relationship with those who are in power and authority shape and impact our level of comfort with telling God, how long, O Lord, why are you hiding your face? A complaint against an unnamed adversary. Who is the enemy? The psalm does not name the enemy. Is it a terrorist? Is it an army with the most advanced military abilities? Is it humans who are destroying the beautiful creation? Unjust legal, economic, and social systems? A spouse, a partner, a parent, a family member, a colleague, a supervisor? Many of us have experienced the oppression, the harm, the taunt of an enemy. And if that is your experience today, you do not need to repress it. You are given the permission to truthfully and boldly name it before God and the faith community. But hold a second. What if this complaint by someone else against you? What if these words are a complaint by someone else against me? What if I am the enemy? What if you are the enemy? What if we are the enemy? What if the psalmist and the enemy end up in the same worship space? As we see in multicultural settings where the colonized and the colonizer sometimes find themselves in the same worship space. How could worship be a space for truth-telling? When we lament to God, we restore some of our agency that has been crushed by all forms of oppression. When we lament to God, we are also held accountable for the ways we abuse our power in the world around us. When we lament against an enemy, and by telling the truth, we are stepping a foot on the path of justice and healing. Now, siblings sitting here, this is your time to compose your own words of lament, your own words of outcry, your words of protest against an enemy. Your words may give you a voice, to be a voice for others who are unable to speak. And what words would you use today? So before you and next to you, there are slips of papers that you have already chosen and markers, and we will give you some time to write your own words of lament on the color that you have chosen that you do not feel very good about. What words of lament would you use? It could be centered around the conflict or violence or harm that is in the centerpiece. Name your words, give voice to those who do not have voice. Offer an outcry to God, asking God, how long, O Lord? in the spaces where you are, there are also pieces of cloth. There should be one on every seat. So I ask you to hold it in your hand. They should be easy to tear. And I will ask you to repeat after me. As you tear part of the cloth, there will be 3 questions that we will raise together as a faith community towards God. How long? Why do you hide your face, O Lord? How long will my enemy prevail?
by about 200 million people. In Africa, also immense. Mpaka lini, Bwana? Je, utanisahau milele? Utanifisha uso wako mpaka lini? Nitapambana na mawazo yangu mpaka lini? Na kila siku kuwa na majonzi moyoni mwangu. Adui zangu watanishinda mpaka lini? Nitazame, Bwana, unijibu. Bwana Mungu wangu, yatie nuru macho yangu, ama sivyo nitalala usingizi wa mauti. Adui zangu wanasema nimemshinda, nao adui zangu watashangilia nitakapoanguka. Lakini ninautegemea upendo wako usiokoma. Moyo wangu unashangilia katika wokovu wako. Nitamwimbia Bwana, kwa kuwa amekuwa mwema kwangu. The word of God. Just to highlight a few things or a few sentences that are made a little bit weighty in the Swahili language. Africa is also asking till when? Mpaka lini? But in doing so, the picture is of one in anguish, in pain, but also making a very direct demand of God. Until when? And the lament doesn't come from one who is doing it like in weakness. It's like one who has gained their power to ask the right question. Until when? This question is directed to God. If it is directed to God, it can be directed to human and worldly powers. If one can summon the courage to ask God, then we can summon the question, the courage to ask the powers that be within and around us. If we can ask God, if we can demand an answer from God, then we can demand it from ourselves. When we are also in positions where we oppress, where we withhold justice to the people around us. The other significant verse is verse 3. The New Revised Standard Version, updated edition, talks about mercy. Swahili, it's a more directed, powerful word. Nitazama. Nitazama. Look at me. And I think the psalmist, the African voice, is tired of being ignored, and it is time for action. That action can be demanded of God. It can be demanded of the powers that are around us. remind us that we can ask that difficult question and demand an answer. Yes, we can ask that difficult question. Yes, we can call the situation as it is. If we can be that forthright with God, we can with human beings. We can before powerful persons. We can be before ourselves. Because we also sometimes victims of justice for others. Verse 5. And 6. It's lament. It's a lament. But then the speaker or the psalmist in Swahili uses a word that has a different meaning in terms of the place the psalmist has been, even in this time of anguish and desperation and pain. In Swahili, the psalmist talks about ninategemea upendo wako. And the connotation is that English is not my first language, but it is a past continuous tense. That even as I lamented, even as I went through this pain, I was always trusting and hoping, and I still trust and hope in you, even now. Ninategemea upendo wako usiokoma. And I think the psalmist is also inviting God to do something that only God can do. That God loves even people that are going through trying times. His mercies, the mercies of God are upon God's people. And the psalmist says, my heart that was in anguish previously, that was sorrowful, my heart, moyo wangu unashangilia, still rejoices in you, celebrates in you, even as I lament. And this is the place that we are, this place we are invited into. That as we gain our voice, the comfort of the lament is that the one that we speak to is okay with us, even when we are in that space and we are asking different questions. And that we come into that space with the hope and trust that there surely is going to, something is going to change. Because the psalmist also has an eye into a time when there will be rejoicing. That pain and suffering is not an end. Says,
not know what has changed about the situation of the psalmist that made them declare their trust and praise to God. We also do not know how much time has passed between putting the pen down after writing words of lament and picking it up back to write words of praise. Have their prayers been answered? Have their prayers changed their view of the current situation? At what point did some glimmer of hope remind them of God's trustworthiness?
Lament, it's not a path that gets you to praise or moves you toward praise. Lament by itself is a valid language of faith. It is its own path where you wrestle with these feelings of neglect, abandonment, fear, anger, confusion. And the prayers we form on these journeys are as valid, as powerful, and as pleasing to God as the prayers of praise. So if we are able to transition our thinking away from lament as a path to praise, then we open up the possibility to even, at times, for some of us, perhaps all times, carry both lament and praise at the same time. They are not mutually exclusive of one another. Of course, you may not ever move to trust or praise in a situation.
You may not be there today. You may not be ready to pick up the pen again to write these lines to God. And that's all right. This is a space to recognize your lament and give it a voice. Some of your siblings may be ready for trust and praise, but you are welcome to simply walk beside us and continue praying prayers of lament. For those who are able to voice prayers of trust and praise today, now, there is another slip of paper that you could use in order to write these words to God, your words of praise and trust, if you are ready to write them.
Maybe your praise and trust prayers might be a little in between, that waiting. The worst of the lament pain has passed, but you haven't quite gotten to that morning just yet. Write those as well, or instead. In a moment, we're going to begin praying through song together. You are also invited to pray through movement in the space by bringing both your prayers forward and offering them in the font. Yes, put the piece of paper in the water. I'm not joking. This font represents this place, and that it is a place where all our prayers can be held together, whether they're angry or exuberant, confused or confident, dejected or hopeful, everything in between. It can be carried, it can be held at the same time here. Jesus, remember me when you come into your kingdom. Jesus, remember me when you come into your kingdom. Jesus, remember me when you come into your kingdom. Jesus, remember me when you come into your kingdom. Jesus, remember me when you come into your
Siblings, go out from here emboldened by the presence of the crucified Jesus, who cried out on the cross, my God, why have you forsaken me? Go from here knowing that the Spirit intercedes with groanings too deep for words. Go, bear witness that lament is a faithful way to talk to God, and that protest is a language of faith.